Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. And today we are going to be reacting to this article from Tovar. She wrote it about the New York Times opinion piece about the body positivity movement. We are going to see what goes on in the mind of another bloater today. So we're going to read this. I also think it's interesting to read written media. So let's see. Let's see what Virgie says. Okay. Shots were fired yet again at the body positivity movement last week when the New York Times posted an opinion piece titled Confessions of a Former Body Positive Influencer. In the video, a woman named Gabriella Lascano, I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, reflects on her self-described rise within the movement and why she ultimately stepped away from it. Once an advocate for loving your body at any size, Lascano says that over time, the movement became increasingly hostile to weight loss and concerns about traditional health metrics. Yep. Lascano says that while she initially found empowerment in community, she increasingly felt that fostering self-love had become an excuse to ignore important health issues. She describes backlash from other creators after she publicly said it wasn't fat-phobic to cure your health, quote unquote. She argues that body positivity should include both self-acceptance and the freedom to pursue health goals without shaming or ostracizing individuals who choose weight loss. That shift in her perspective drew criticism online, leading her to describe herself as a pariah in the very community that once embraced her. What I will give Virgie credit for is she did sum that up pretty well. A lot of the people that have reacted to this, I just watched Nadia Nimp's video today. A lot of the people that have reacted have not actually had any critical thought or actually listened to what was said in the opinion piece. So I can at least give Virgie that credit that she did read it and process it. I don't know what we're going to get through the processing, but that was a pretty fair synopsis in my opinion. So I'm like, okay, let's see. Though it is being newly oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time reading tonight. Though it is being newly adjudicated, got it, by the press due to the Ozempic era, the body positivity movement itself is no stranger to the types of arguments being made by Lascano. This video, in fact, exposes a long-standing tension that's worth examining. The split inside body positivity fundamentally boils down to one thing: whether you see this fight as a fight primarily for self-acceptance or you see it as a fight primarily for collective social change. Okay, I know where she's going. So we're going into we need to be for fat liberation. So I'm pretty sure that's where we're headed. But see, that's the funny thing about like a bloater is it can seem like they're going to go somewhere original, but then they just go back to the script, That's, I don't know. For people who don't know what I'm talking about the zombies. Virgie is a very advanced zombie. If you guys remember her cake video, it was so ridiculous. So she's like a cake-related fat phobic, and I don't know. I can't even remember. It was so long ago, but she like couldn't handle that somebody was asking for a smaller slice of cake. She couldn't handle it, which to me, I'm like, that has to be a bloater. It's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Plus, I don't see Virgie as, she's not as reactive as what I would consider a clicker. She's strategic enough, and she tries to be liked, and I've seen her interact in groups, and she has a certain level of charisma. Like, I've seen her in action. I've reacted to her doing podcasts, like group podcasts and stuff. So she's not reactive. She is more calculated. So she is a bloater. Okay. I was just getting that straight for y'all that have been on my channel for a while. Okay. For the former, body positivity is an individual lifestyle framework, an expansion of self-improvement culture that prioritizes confidence, personal empowerment and self-esteem. For the latter, it's a serious call to action, a demand that all bodies be given the dignity that is currently only afforded to those who are thin. The former asks, how can I feel better in my body right now? The latter asks, why were bodies like mine marginalized in the first place, and who benefits from that? Those are not stylistic differences. They are fundamentally different ambitions. Sure, I could agree with that, Virgie. But what are you going to do when one of those was way more popular than the other one? What are you going to do? Which I'm sure she's going to try. You know, she's really trying to take the reins of this movement. I've noticed that since Aubrey has kind of fallen to the background, Virgie's really been trying to step into a leadership position within the movement. I don't know if it's happening, but I would still consider Virgie like one of the high priestesses of fat acceptance. She's a bloater for sure, but I just don't know how much sway she actually has. I feel like Aubrey had a lot of sway. I feel like Tess had a lot of sway. Virgie's really trying with the Ozempic thing. She's really trying to push against GLP-1s. And I don't see it taking off that well. I just don't. It happens a little bit in the zombie community. Like I've seen it like on Fat Logic. I've seen some of them freaking out about GLP-1s, but I don't see it happening that much. Like I don't see the whole thing going against it. But I've told you guys, the toxic ritualistic world, aka E followed by the letter D, that's how I talk about it on the channel. That is, Ozempic is so important to the TR world. It's bigger than just binge. It's all of them. It has to be the number one topic. So it's like it's harder for fat acceptance to outright demonize it, because within the TR zombie world, it's such a useful thing. It's useful to use it as an excuse. It's useful to basically to use it as an excuse for any and all issues you may have. You can and will use Ozempic as an excuse. You will use GLP-1s as an excuse for why you're engaging in the behavior. Any of them will do that, to be honest. So it's kind of like sacred in a way. So for Virgie to attack it, she's trying to do something that's unnatural for the zombie world, because it would be too alienating for Anna and Mia, for the girls. So they're not going to have as much support within the zombie horde, because it is a herd. It all thinks it, like everybody in it thinks the same, pretty much, especially the worse you get in it. So it's like I can't say anything about this. And the TR, in my opinion, has an extremely pro GLP-1 standpoint. Extremely pro. Why? Because it's the trend. It's the thing. It's what is being talked about today. So I think where Virgie is messing up is she sees it as something like keto. Now, keto is a diet. So keto worked within the TR world because it's something that you could embrace or completely reject, and people could go on different lines and fight about it. It was the same thing with veganism. When veganism had a huge moment in the early 2010s, it was the exact same thing. You can go against it. You can be for it. You can talk about it. It can be like a big thing. Ozempic, however, it's not a diet. So it's different. It's a medication. And the way that the TR world talks about it, it's like the whole world is different now. It's new technology. We're in a completely new world now. Everything has changed because the holy GLP-1 has graced us. The aliens came down and gave us this new technology. This is how people in the TR feel about this. So it's too sacred. So it's like you can take it because you're so privileged, so you can, and because you can get out, and this and that and the other. But the other people, they can't take it. So they're not good enough to take it. And then Virgie, she's just like, oh, well, I'll make that sacrifice. I won't take it even though I could. I'm not going to. You see, so it's this whole like LARPing session with GLP-1. Now, I'm not saying that this is how the general public is thinking about it. I don't believe that at all. I need to be very clear. This is the zombie horde talks about it like as if it is, it's been passed down by the witch queen of whatever made up place. That's how they talk about it, or it came from aliens. It's mythical. It's folklorish. That's the level that Ozempic is on. So for her to try to attack that, I think it's a really tough sell, because she's only going to have like half of BINGE on her side, and she's not going to have any of the other ones. And you have to remember, they all work together. All of them do. They all feed into each other. It's like a sick zombie ecosystem. So it's like the Annas, they want to shame so much and shame people so drastically. So then they'll go to the BINGE people and they'll be like, then they can say, see, it's okay to be bigger. They were so extreme. They were so extreme in the 2000s, but we're not. But they are. It's the same thing. And then you guys have let me know, and I agree that Mia worships Anna. So it's like Mia's a wannabe. So it's kind of more like that. So they're probably more shaming too. But they're also like, they kind of straddle that line. So it's a weird one for sure. But they're all weird. I mean, let's be real. They're all horrible. But the point is, all of them look at Ozempic like, oh my gosh, the world has changed. Everything has changed. Even though in reality, nothing has changed. Like obesity, it did stagnate, which is good. It's not totally on the rise, but I think it's not just Ozempic or GLP-1s that's causing that. I think it's a whole host of issues. It's cost of food. It is GLP-1s. It's the fact that a lot of people have passed away in recent years, particularly in fat acceptance. That's scary. It's post-panini. There's just so many social factors going on and so many like socioeconomic grand scale things happening that I think are leading to the stagnation of obesity. So yeah, and then there is at least the beginnings, I hope to God, of a cultural shift happening. I really hope so. I am a Firefly. I believe it can happen. I want to believe it's out there, but we are still at this moment of like whispers in the wind because it's still kind of rare. But I'm hoping it's going to, become more mainstream in the years to come. But we have a long way to go and we have to be realistic. So anyways, let's continue this. I just had to say that. I think that's why she's struggling. So, yeah. Okay. To put a finer point on why these questions can create so much tension, it's important to keep in mind that entering a movement is akin to entering a relationship. Intention matters. It's the difference between entering a partnership with the question, what can you do for me? And answering with the question, how can we work as a team to thrive together? There isn't anything inherently wrong with the first question. No one is purely selfless. However, a primarily self-improvement minded person has very different expectations of themselves and others than a primarily collective change-minded person. Honestly, anti-fat acceptance, we do a great job of merging the two. So, sucks to be you, Virgie. We do a great job in the Fireflies of combining the two of them. It's great. I think it's one of the most, I love it. It's very balanced. It's a very balanced movement in that way. I love it for that reason. But sucks to be you, Virgie. Your cause sucks. Okay? Anyways, for instance, a person who sees body positivity through a self-improvement lens may be less interested in taking time to understand the strong evidence that shows us that BMI is not a good indicator of health. Weight loss is not effective long-term for most people. And when we use weight as a proxy for health, it leads to discrimination and poor health outcomes for people in larger bodies. A person who sees body positivity as an important social movement, on the other hand, may be eager to learn the humanitarian and empirical arguments that have long been central tenets of the fat activism and body positivity movements in order to be more effective allies. Okay. So she's just saying, I care more about the collective, so I'm better than you. That's all she's saying. I don't think it's deeper than that. I'm trying to see if there's any other subtext. I think she's just, I don't even think this is necessarily, I mean, it is TR, but it's that BINGE competition. You know, I do this for a holy cause. I make this sacrifice every day. It's that kind of thing. That's how BINGE people act when they're severe. It's bad. So I'm fat because of some greater significance. The sun rises and falls because I'm fat, right? It's that level of obsession. But her whole life revolves around it, so she has to be that way. She has to. Tension turns into resentment when the more politically minded faction keeps having to explain why body positivity is an anti-health to the other faction, who can't be bothered to do the reading. Likewise, because we're better than them. That's what she's saying. Likewise, it's deeply frustrating to be a self-improvement oriented person who's asked to read a bunch of admittedly depressing studies when you don't see how that could possibly help you feel better about your own body. Okay. True. But that's just like an activistic struggle. It's like it's hard to make something boring interesting. Welcome to the struggles that I'm sure you're aware of, because that's like every single cause has to do that, you know. So you're not special there, Virgie. This rift, which had always been there. I do want to say this though, before we go further. There are points of division within the anti-fat world. So I do think there's a difference between anti-fat acceptance, particularly on YouTube, aka the Fireflies, and just the whole system that is against fatness, because I think that there are two main groups that are problematic in their own ways in the fight against the zombie horde, which I will talk about. I guess I can talk about it right now. Why not? Because let's talk about how our movement is divided too, or how our side can be a bit divided. So I'm going to call them the Wolves and the Seraphites, which they are factions from The Last of Us 2. But basically, the Wolves, in my opinion, I'm going to be calling them the Waste Liberation Front. They are people that are grifters. So they are people that give bad advice to fat people. They are people that pander to fat people, even though they're not zombies. They're not in it at all. They don't believe anything that they're saying, but they will say things to get the bag. So some examples of this is Liv Schmidt. She's a great example of that. And Jacob Foods, aka Abby. He's a major one. Huge grifter, just about the money, all about the money. So it's the type of person that doesn't believe in fat acceptance, but has no idealism to actually fixing the issue. And so they're going to get theirs. That's the mindset. So the other side of the fight is the Seraphites. Seraphites are diet purists. They are people that are extremely idealistic. So they have very, very, very high ideals. And I think that's the struggle with them, is that they don't understand the difference between their own standards for themselves and standards that should be pushed on society. So this is where you'll have like the Paul Saldino types. RFK himself is probably a Seraphite, and the vegans and the primal bros and these types of people. They have this idealistic vision, we can return to something, or we can find something due to this zombie outbreak. We can find meaning in it. we can find hope in it, and we can create this extremely rigid system that at times can be cult-like. And if you don't eat the same as me, then you have to leave the friend group. Okay? So that's a Seraphite. And those two, they often fight each other. And yeah, it's just a big distraction as the zombies take over. So I'm not a fan, but I'm a Firefly. We are Fireflies on this channel. Okay? So we have that idealistic belief that we can get back to a time when obesity wasn't taking over everything and when zombies didn't run everything. So I believe that that can happen. Now, we just have to make sure within anti-FA, within the Fireflies, that we don't try to kill Ellie, okay? We have to make sure that we keep the goal in mind and not be too crazy, because that can happen sometimes too, although it's rare, but it can happen. And it can be so frustrating, and I understand how frustrating it is. Trust me. Trust me. When I was reacting to Angelica, she was like, I just get so frustrated. And I'm like, I know, but we can't kill Ellie in the process, you know? You have to like balance the fight with the grace. It's tough. It's not easy to be a Firefly, but it is the way forward, in my opinion, which we lose weight without hating ourselves. We don't support the toxic ritualistic whatsoever. We quell all of that to the best of our ability, and we try to get back to a time before the zombies. And that's the side that I'm on. And through that too, we can also handle and tolerate and be okay with dieting differences within the Fireflies. So for example, me and Robin, we are literally opposite. I'm a lot more moderating of my fat intake, and I'm more higher carb. She's keto. So she's very, very moderating of her carb intake, and she's very fat based, but we can get along perfectly fine. And we may not agree on every single issue, but we do agree in the dream, in the vision of getting back to a time when obesity wasn't taking over. So, yeah. Does that make sense? Hey, if she's going to talk about her movement, we're going to talk about ours. Okay? So let's continue. All right. Oh, gosh. These channels, by their very nature... Okay, this rift, which has always been there, deepened when body positivity entered the mainstream because it did so through platforms that reward visibility, relatability, and monetization. These channels, by their very nature, encourage an influx and emboldening of the self-improvement-minded individual. Brands embraced inclusive campaigns, and influencers built audiences. That what was once a radical intervention led by fat activists challenging medical discrimination, employment bias, and cultural stigma was quickly translated into more market-friendly concepts: self-confidence, self-love, self-acceptance. Confidence is easy to sell. Structural change is not. These are radically different projects with radically different levels of risk. Confidence is market-friendly. It invites new product lines and aspirational branding. Structural change requires confronting healthcare inequities, workplace discrimination, media bias, and the economic penalties attached to fatness. It demands policy conversations, not just personal ones. It demands major social change, not just edits to the status quo. So yeah, I can echo some of her struggles in the anti-FA movement. Again, I think anti-FA for the most part is good, but we understand that we're not at a strong place to push for economic or for like policy shift. We're just not there. I hope and believe, I really do, but we have to focus on what we can control today and what we can push forward today. I have visions of doing some protests and stuff in the future, but I just don't think there's enough of us at this time to even do that. And we have to be realistic. So I am an idealistic person, but I'm a realistic one too. And with the amount of gridlock in Washington, you're not going to see anything happen federally on the issue of fatness. Probably not for years. So I don't want people to use that as an excuse to not act. I don't like that. That pisses me off. I'm going to be honest. So you don't use, well, we just have to change the government, so I'm just going to sit on my ass and let the zombies take over. No, we don't use that. To me, I just don't want to have to do anything. No. How do you think government change happens? How do you think societal change happens? Does it happen because you sat on your ass and waited for Congress to pass a law? No. That's not how it happens, okay? So, we're not supporting laziness in terms of the Fireflies. I don't support that. Okay, anyways. But yeah, I understand the feeling of challenging the status quo. You know, if I was just a wolf and I was like, I'll just go into coaching and just fuck everyone else, then I'd probably make a lot more money. I'd probably, then I could make cringy reels about how I have so much money at my age and all this crap, right? There's so much of that on Instagram. Just check it out. If I start to be like Abby and masquerade that I had an e-validity, which I might have to show him do that. It's so awful, but he's been doing it. Jacob, he's literally like grifting off of this e-validity experience he didn't have. It's disgusting to me. It's so awful. But that's, it's like, sure, go ahead and grift, I guess, right? It's all about the mighty dollar, right? It's all about you getting yours. I don't respect people like that. But we have them on our side too, so you have to be careful. And I do think a wolf is a very good way of a very good name, because they are on the prowl always. So I'm just saying, we have our own issues too. But I'm going to get into that. I hope that I can just totally tell you guys that in the future, and you'll be like, I know exactly what Alex is talking about. So that's something that I have to work on this year, but I got all year. When pharmaceutical weight loss drugs entered the mainstream, that split widened once more. Suddenly, this thing that was trendy wasn't anymore. To top it off, the terms of the game had changed. Now health was the primary rhetorical weapon. If you still hadn't done the reading of aforementioned depressing scientific articles, your case for self-love was becoming flimsier and more irrelevant by the second. Furthermore, even a self-improvement-minded person who has read and believes the compelling arguments against intentional weight loss is likelier, by virtue of their worldview, to see themselves in the outlying minority of success stories and the overwhelming majority of those who don't end up reaping the dividends of weight loss promises in the long run. That majority was never their concern, after all. Oh, but it is yours, right, bloater? It's yours. Not anyone else, though. They don't care, but you do, Virgie. Oh, Virgie cares, you guys. So they prioritize their personal right to pursue that unlikely success and accuse any detractors of being bullies for good measure. Because you are. Because you guys have a disorder. And you're externalizing it onto other people, and it's disgusting. And nobody likes to see it, and everyone's shocked when it happens. They're like, what the hell is going on? To return to the partnership metaphor, the start of the Ozempic era became the first moment for some content creators when the relationship to the movement went from easy and Instagrammable to challenging and inconvenient. Leaving body positivity in this context is not merely a decision based on autonomy or what you do or don't owe the movement. It is a signal about which version of the movement you are participating in to begin with. Okay, whatever. This is so stupid. Virgie, if you lose people as an activist, it's because there's problems, which I will just say that she will never listen to me. But that goes for anything. People, when you're fighting for a cause and you lose people, it's because you failed. People don't like to hear that. But again, we are all allergic to accountability in this time. And that does include in the activist sphere. It's always the person that left's fault. And it's like, maybe your arguments were bad. Maybe the other side's arguments were better. Maybe you flopped. Maybe you became too nasty and toxic and, all this stuff. It happens. It happens. Like I said, within the Fireflies, we cannot kill Ellie. Okay? You have to be careful of that. So don't become toxic and nasty and too horrible, but you still got to fight. You can't be a pussy either. So I'm just saying, I get it. It is a balance to be struck. It is. I know. I'm asking you for balance. People hate that in today's day and age, but do you see why the issue has gotten so much worse? Because people cannot stand balance. Okay? I'm trying to get you in the game. That's what I'm doing. This is a very activist-y video. Okay. But she's having an activistic moment too, so it's kind of inspiring me to do that. But this whole thing of like, your intention was never there and blah, blah, blah. It's like, girl, bye. Just stop. You lost. You're losing. I know that I'm losing. I know that the Fireflies are losing right now. I mean, we have to work so hard. But I'm not going to give up. You got to keep the faith. You got to have hope. Nothing gets done if you don't have hope. Again, I'm an idealistic person, but I'm a realistic idealist. So I'm aware of where we're at today. We're at the start of a budding shift, a stagnation of obesity, which is very hopeful, but very early and far from celebration. Okay? That is the moment. If your participation in body positivity was primarily focused on what the movement could do for you, then exiting when the incentives change is logical. If, on the other hand, body positivity was understood as a challenge to medical bias, employment discrimination, and social exclusion, then it was never a seasonal affiliation for you. It was always going to be a long-term cultural intervention. The New York Times video captures the emotional nature of this split. What it does not interrogate, however, is the values underpinning it. The current moment is less about whether someone left the movement than about which version of it they were inhabiting all along. Cop out, activist cop out, loser. You're a loser, Virgie. Loser. This is such a loser mindset. Oh my gosh. Please. No Fireflies don't ever act like this, please. If you lose somebody to the zombie horde, you just got to move on. Okay? If people want to go into it, you got to let them go, but you got to try. You just try. You try the best you can. If you flop, you flop. You don't flop the next time. Okay? It's hard, but it is what it is. This is just such a loser mindset. This is like cringing me out. Oh my God, Virgie, you're such a loser. Movements that are culturally fashionable but economically inconvenient rarely retain the same level of participation. The real question then is not whether an influencer should be free to change her mind. Of course she is. The real question is, who stays when a social movement stops being comfortable and when the time has come to give more than you get? Shut the fuck up, Virgie. Was it comfortable for anti-FAs to do it? No. Was it comfortable for me when I started? No. You guys made a huge mess in 2022 to the point where I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to do something. This is getting real bad. You think it was easy? It wasn't easy. It's never been easy. Anything worth doing is not easy. I'm not going to tell you guys it's easy to be a Firefly. It's not. But what I can tell you is you start with the people in your life. You do the best you can. You try to bring a realistic perspective to comment sections. You know, it doesn't have to be this grand thing. You have to understand we are a resistance. This is the real resistance. So you are not in the majority if you are a Firefly. Keep that in mind. So have that expectation that if you say something, you're going to have some clicker attack you in the wilds of the internet, okay? So just be prepared, because they will come out and you'll be like, but I just want you to know what's happening so that you can handle it and you can be like, no, I'm right, you know? And have that. I want you to have that spirit when you fight the zombies, because you are right. So, like, shout out to Compulsive Rambler. She told me about this, or she's commented about this clicker that like freaked out on her when it was a video that had nothing to do with fat acceptance at all, like that she commented on. And it's like, it happens, you know, but at least you know. I just want you to know. And if you're joining this fight, like, thank you. It doesn't have to be the grandest thing in the world. It's like, we're just trying to change a cultural voice at this time. We're trying to shift culture. So it's like I said, you show up in those comment sections if you're super introverted, or you talk about it to people in your life, or maybe for some people it will be starting a channel, you know, or something like that. If you are in a position where you can publicly downsize, it really helps. It really does. Because the more weight loss visibility, to coin Angelica's term, that we have, the better. So it helps, because it's about numbers and it's about like shifting things, you know. And it is a collective effort too. Although, of course, there are leaders in any movement, there's also people within the movement that do a lot of work too, that are not necessarily super public. So shout out to Goblin as well. She has really helped me at times, even just supporting me emotionally as an activist sometimes. That can help too. Even just supporting activists can help. You know, if you just... That's why I'm happy to be collabing more too, because it's very helpful, because we can support each other in this fight. So it's just a very healthy thing to do. But yeah, this turned into a super activisty video. Holy crap. But for those of you guys who are really about it, I know you'll appreciate this. And just remember, believe in the Fireflies. Okay? I will talk to you guys later. Have a good